Hey everyone, welcome to the Vibe Coders Vocabulary Part 3. Have you ever heard developers say things like clone the repo, deploy it on Vercel, the CI CD pipeline failed, and wondered what does that mean ever, right? So that's exactly what today's session is about. Think of it in this manner. If you're learning medicine, you need medical terms, right? If you're learning, let's say, law, you need legal terms. Similarly, if you're building AI products, you need to speak the language of developers. So by the end of this session, you will confidently be able to understand terms like Docker, Node.js, API. In fact, API and all we covered in the past session as well, the previous session, right? JSON, webhooks, CI, CD, Docker, MVP, and many more. And don't worry, of course, we will keep everything simple. Okay, so whether you're building with Cursor, Bolt, Lovable, ChatGPT, Claude, GitHub, or Vercel, this vocabulary will help you understand what's happening behind the scenes. So let's begin the journey with, from using AI to thinking like a professional AI builder. Okay, we are moving just beyond building apps we discussed. Okay, so we are learning how professionals communicate. Imagine joining your first startup on Monday, and in the very first meeting somebody says again, raise a pull request. We already discussed what pull request is. Install the dependencies, right? So if you don't know these terms, again I'm saying, you will feel actually lost. So even if you're a good coder, so think of it like joining a hospital. Okay, doctors don't say, bring the picture machine. They say, get the MRI, right? Every profession has its own vocabulary. The same is true in software development. So, what's the good news? The good news is you don't need years of experience, you just need to understand the language, right? Okay, so let's start with our first term here. What you see is NPM and yarn, right? They are actually package managers, let me tell you. So you may be wondering, what's that? Imagine you buy a new smartphone. You don't build WhatsApp, Instagram, Google Maps yourself. Okay, you simply download them from the App Store. Similarly, when developers build software, they don't write everything from scratch. Okay, they use ready-made libraries created by other developers. So, what is a library? Library is a room which is filled with lots of books. This is how we have conventionally seen, right? So, imagine here as well. Okay, NPM and Yarn are like, app store for developers. Okay, they automatically build all the required libraries for your project. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you're building an AI chatbot. Instead of writing code to display beautiful buttons, charts, or animations, you simply install trusted packages. Okay, packages and libraries are one and the same thing, right? But we'll understand them a little later. So one simple command like npm space install downloads everything your project needs in few seconds. Okay, what are the popular packages? Okay, like React, you have then Tailwind CSS, Axios, OpenAI SDK, Express. Okay, tools you will use, of course, is npm. This comes with Node.js, Yarn, Cursor, and VS Code, right? We'll move to the next one, right? And this is Node.js. Don't worry about the technical definition now. Let's understand it. Imagine you've bought a new washing machine and it has all features, but without electricity. Obviously, it won't run, right? So similarly, your JavaScript code, JavaScript is a language actually, right? It needs an environment to run outside the browser. Okay, that's why what Node.js actually provides. Suppose you have built an AI-powered expense tracker using Bolt or Lovable. When you, so what is Bolt? Bolt is just like, Cursor or, Codex. You go there, type your prompt, and you will get your output. You can in fact try that out. Okay, so when you download the project and open it on your computer, it won't run unless Node.js is actually installed. So it's the engine that powers your application. Okay, let me give you another real world use case. Almost every modern web application, from startups to companies like Netflix, PayPal, they all use Node.js, somewhere in its development process. So whenever someone says, please install Node.js first, right, they're actually simply saying install the engine your project needs to run. Today, tools that you're actually using is Node.js, Cursor, VS Code, NPM, Vercel, all that. Okay, so let's move to the next part, which is clone versus fork. Right? Let's understand two terms that confuse almost every beginner. Right? So clone is something like, you can say, imagine your teacher shares a PowerPoint with the entire class. You have two choices, right? Uh, Clone is like, you can say, downloading a copy of that PowerPoint presentation to your laptop so that you can view and edit it. But fork is like making your own copy in Google Drive. Now it's yours. You can make any changes without affecting the original one. Okay, so practical example is, suppose you find an amazing AI project on GitHub, like an AI resume builder. You don't want to change the original product, and that's a good practice. What you do is you fork it in your GitHub account, then you clone your copy to your computer and start building. And that's why developers often say fork the repository, then clone it. Okay, so real world use case would be, imagine you join a company with 100 developers. Now one edits the original project directly. Everyone works on their own copy, tests their changes, and then request permission to merge them. We already have seen how GitHub actually works, right? So that's how teams avoid chaos. Tool, of course, is GitHub, Git, Cursor, VS Code, all that. So simple. Fork is create your own copy online, and clone is actually download that copy to your computer. Okay. Then there is this very important, which is dot git ignore. Right? It may sound strange, but it's also one of the most important files in your project. Yeah, it's a file, right? Think of it like do not pack kind of list. Okay, imagine you're moving to a new house. You pack your clothes, your books, laptop, everything, right? But you don't pack the dustbin or old newspapers. Similarly, when uploading a project to GitHub, not every file should be uploaded. Some files are like temporary, very large, or contain secret passwords and API keys. We saw something called environment variables, right? Yeah, that related to secret password. So that's where dot get ignored comes in. Practical example would be, suppose you're building an AI chatbot, okay, using OpenAI API, right? Your API key is like your ATM pin, okay? You would never post publicly. Now, by adding the .env file to .get ignored, Git ensures your secret key is never uploaded to GitHub. Okay, I want to repeat this again. By adding .env file to .get ignored, Git actually ensures your secret key is never uploaded to GitHub. The real world use case would be many companies have accidentally exposed passwords by forgetting to use .get ignored. A simple mistake can actually lead to security breaches and unexpected, cloud bills. So tools you will use is Git, GitHub, Cursor again, right? So in a very simple way to understand, .get ignore file actually protects your project by telling Git what should never be uploaded. Okay, think of it like your project security guard. Okay, let's talk about something every developer faces, right? Merge conflict. Okay, merge we have already seen, but merge conflict. Now imagine you and your friend are editing the same PowerPoint presentation. Okay, you change slide 5, your friend also changes slide 5. Now, when it's time to combine both versions, the computer gets confused. It asks, which version should I keep? I mean, your friend's or yours? That's called a merge conflict. Okay, simple example is, suppose you're building an AI powered shopping app with your team and you change the login page, another developer edits the same login page at the same time. When both changes are combined, Git can't decide automatically. It stops and asks you to resolve the conflict. Okay, large companies such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, right? They have hundreds of developers working on the same code base. Merge conflicts happen every day. So the key isn't, avoiding them. It's actually resolving them correctly. And here we use tools like again Git, GitHub, VS Code, or Cursor. So what is the takeaway for you? A merge conflict doesn't mean something is broken. It simply means two people change the same part of a project and Git needs a human to actually decide the final version. Okay, then comes the SSH key, right? It sounds technical, but the idea is very simple. Okay, think of SSH key as your digital identity card. Yes, digital identity card. Imagine you work in a corporate office. Every morning, you don't prove your identity with your passport, right? You can simply scan your employee ID card and then door opens. That's exactly how an SSH key works. Instead of typing your GitHub username and password every time, your computer securely proves, yes, this is really me, right? Suppose you're pushing your AI project from Cursor or VS Code to GitHub, right? With an SSH key, GitHub may repeatedly ask you to log in. With an SSH key, the connection is secure and automatic, right? So every professional developer sets up an SSH key when joining a company. It saves time and provides much faster, better than repeatedly you can say entering passwords. Right. Again, the tools are the same, right? But here you also use other than GitHub and Git, you use terminal, right? So yeah, simple. So an SSH key is your office access card. Okay. Now let's understand this term called Docker. And as you see within parentheses, it's called it's written this container. Okay, so think of Docker as a shipping container. Okay, whether you're transporting clothes, let's say electronics or furniture, everything is packed into one container, so it reaches the destination exactly as it left. Okay, so Docker does the same for software. It packages your application along with everything it actually needs to run into one container. uh, let's take the example. Suppose you've built an AI powered hospital management system. It works perfectly on your laptop, but when you send it to a client, right, it suddenly stops working because their computer has different settings. With Docker, you simply send the container. If it works on your laptop, it will work on your client's computer too. Okay, imagine you're selling your AI application to hundreds of customers. Instead of configuring each customer's computer separately, you ship the same Docker container to everyone. It saves hours of setup and eliminates the classic execute. It works on my machine, something like that. Okay. So popular tools are Docker or Docker's desktop, GitHub, Bustle, Railway. There's also a similar kind of software software called Railway. Okay. Now our term is CI/CD pipeline, right? May sound complicated currently, but it's actually not. Now imagine you're writing a document in Google Docs. Okay, every time you make changes, it automatically gets saved. Now imagine that after every change, your app is automatically tested, and if everything is correct, automatically deployed. That's exactly we call it a CI/CD pipeline, right? So suppose you have updated your AI portfolio website. Okay, instead of manually uploading the files every time, you simply push your code to GitHub. The CI/CD pipeline automatically checks for errors, builds the application, deploys it to version. Okay, and this happens in a minute, and your updated website is live. Okay, companies like Amazon, Netflix, all these big companies, release updates many times a day. Okay, no one manual upload happen actually. So everything is automated through CI/CD pipelines, making releases faster, safer, and more reliable. Okay. The popular tools are GitHub Actions, Jenkins, GitLab CI, CD, then Circle CI, and then Vercel. So our next term here is staging environment. Think of it as a dress rehearsal before the final performance. Before a movie releases in theater, it's actually shown to a small group to catch any last minute mistakes. Okay. Software works the same way. Before your app goes live for real users, you first test it in a staging environment. The practical example is, suppose you've added a new payment feature to your AI course website. Would you test it directly with real customers? That's the question. Of course not, right? Your first test is it in the staging to make sure payments, emails, buttons all work correctly. Only then do you release it to everyone. Okay, so the real world use cases, imagine updating Swiggy or Zomato app. Okay, if a bug slips through, what will happen? Millions of users could be affected. Okay, that's why companies always test new features in a staging environment before moving them to production. The tools are again uh, Vercel, then you have Netlify, you have Railway, Firebase, AWS, likewise. So staging is like your practice ground. Okay, the two new terms, cache and CDN. Okay, let's make this simple. Imagine you love a particular book. Instead of traveling to the library every time you want to read it, you keep a copy on your study table. That's called cache, right? Keeping a temporary copy nearby so that you can access it quickly. Now imagine there are libraries in every cities across India, right? People simply visit the nearest one instead of traveling hundreds of kilometers. That's exactly what a CDN or content delivery network does. Let me give you an example. Suppose I have a website called AI-Praxis, right? .co.in, and it has students from India, the USA, Australia. Now, without a CDN, every student has access to my website from one central server. With a CDN, what happens? Copies of my website are stored on servers around the world. So every student automatically gets the content from the nearest server, making the website load much faster. This is very important. Okay. Let me give you another example. You watch YouTube, right, or open Netflix. The content doesn't always come from one central location. It's delivered from a nearby server, reducing load, time, and buffering, right? And in fact, when you click, CDN, right, you'll find the list of names of some cities, right? Singapore, you'll find Mumbai, or you'll find maybe Bangalore, right? You will find New York, something like that. Okay. So popular tools are Cloudflare, then AWS CloudFront, Google Cloud CDN, then Azure CDN, all that. So cache is keep a copy nearby. CDN is keep copies in many locations around the world so that the content can be loaded on the website, very fast. Okay, webhook. Think of webhook as an automatic notification. Yes, imagine you've ordered food from Zomato, and the moment your order is confirmed, you receive a notification. When the food is prepared, you receive, another notification. Right. When the delivery partner picks it up, you get another one. You don't keep checking your app every minute. The app automatically informs you. That's exactly how a webhook works. Suppose a student enrolls in AI-Praxis, any of the programs that we're running. The moment payment is successful, Razorpay sends a webhook. Your website, or let's say in this case, my website automatically, creates students' account. Right, a welcome email is sent, assuming that that's also built in feature. Access to the course is then granted. Okay, no one has to do all these tasks manually, actually. I mean, at least I don't have. So the real world use case here is whenever you receive an email saying your payment was successful or your order has been shipped, just remember, oh, there's a webhook. Okay, that's actually working behind the scenes. So if Razorpay, Stripe, right, GitHub webhooks, Zapier, Make, formerly it was known as, Intro, Inti, grow Mac, but make is now common. Okay. Then comes this called cron job. Yes. This is an automatic alarm clock for your software. Imagine you set an alarm for 6 a.m. every day. You don't have to remember to wake up, right? The alarm does it automatically. A cron job works the same way. It runs a task at a scheduled time without anyone clicking a button. For example, you're running an AI learning platform, let's say, and every night at 2 p.m., the system backs up the database, sends daily reports, delegates temporary files, emails, tomorrow's class, reminders, all that. So nobody has to stay awake to do that. The cron job actually takes care of everything. Okay. Think about your bank. Every night it calculates interest updates, account databases, and generates, reports all automatically. Now, these scheduled tasks are often powered by cron jobs, right? The popular tools are Linux cron, GitHub Actions, or scheduled workflows. Then you have Vercel, right, cron jobs, AWS, right, even Bridge, Google Cloud Scheduler. Okay, now we have API endpoint. Imagine a restaurant. You don't walk into the kitchen to place your order. You give your order to a waiter who knows exactly where to take it. An API endpoint is playing the role of a waiter. Okay. It's a specific address where your app sends a request to get something done, right? Suppose you're building an AI weather app, and when the user enters, let's say Mumbai, your app sends a request to the weather API endpoint. The endpoint returns today's temperature, humidity, forecast. You simply, just check the app and it displays the result, right? So every time you log into an Instagram or book a Uber or search, let's say something on Swiggy, ask ChatGPT a question, your app actually is communicating with a different API endpoint behind the scene. Okay, the popular tools are Postman, Thunder, client, OpenAI API. We have Google Maps API, we have Stripe API, all that. Then comes JSON. Yes. Okay. So our next term is JSON, right? The full form of is JavaScript Object Notation. JavaScript Object Notation. Okay. So JSON is and this is how we pronounce, is a simple way to organize and exchange data. Think of it like a customer information form, right? Every form has got some labels. It'll have some name, place, right? Or for example, my name is Amit. Maybe the course is AI Builder. It's priced at some 999 rupees, something like that. So JSON stores information in exactly same way. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if someone comes and signs up on my website, right, gives all these details, the information might the website and the server both understand this format, and so they can communicate. Okay. Whenever you ask ChatGPT a question or check the weather or order on Uber, all that, the data is usually exchanged in JSON format behind the scenes. Again, so Postman, you have OpenAI API, all that are the popular tools. Okay, let's discuss authentication, and in fact, authentication versus authorization. Okay, don't be confused. So, very simple way to remember. Imagine you're entering an airport. First, security checks your passport and boarding pass, right? That's authentication, proving who you are. Now, imagine you try to enter the pilot's cockpit. Even though you have been identified, you're not allowed inside, okay? That's authorization, deciding what you're allowed to do. Got it? Practical example is, suppose you log into AI-Praxis platform, okay? You enter your email ID and password, the system confirms your identity. That's called authentication. Now, if you're an admin, you can create courses. If you're a student, you can only view enrolled courses. That is authorization. which means only one person is authorized to upload the courses. Okay. Real world use case is very simple. Think of WhatsApp. You authenticate using your phone number and OTP, but only the group admin can remove members or change, group settings. That's called authorization. Popular tools are Firebase, authentication. Then you have Auth0, Clerk. Then you have Superbase Auth. Then Google Sign In. All that. So authentication is who you are. Authorization is what you can do. Let's understand database migration. Okay. Imagine you have built an AI powered student management system, right? Initially, you store the metadata like name, email, phone number, all that. A few months later, you decide to add a new field called LinkedIn profile. How do you safely update the database for every user without losing existing data? That's exactly what a database migration does. Now, before we migrate, we have something called a schema, right? Think of schema as a blueprint of a house. Okay, schema is just like a design, okay, in a very simple language, it's the blueprint of a house. So it defines what rooms, or in this case, what fields exist in your database. A migration is simply updating the blueprint in a safe and organized way. Suppose AI-Praxis decides to issue certificates, which we actually do also. You need a new field called certificate ID for every student. Instead of uh, manually updating thousands of records, you run a migration once. Okay. So real world use case would be banks, hospitals, e-commerce platforms, social media apps constantly add new features. Every time they add new data fields, database management, migration actually help, update millions of records safely and constantly. So some of the tools are very popular is MySQL, PostgreSQL, Prisma, Superbase, okay, Laravel migrations, all that. MVP, minimum viable product, one of the most important concepts in startups that we do. Okay, so let's understand it. So imagine you want to open a restaurant. Now, do you spend 5 crore building a 5-star restaurant before knowing if people like your food? Probably not, right? Instead, you start with a small food stall, maybe serve your best dishes, collect customer feedback, and improve over time. This is called MVP. Okay, it's a product, but minimum and viable. Okay, suppose you want to build an AI resume builder. Okay, you may have 50 feature ideas, but for version 1, you only launch 3, which is like upload resume, improve resume with AI, and then download the PDF. That's enough to solve the core problem and get real user feedback. You don't need every feature on day one. Okay, think about the first versions of Instagram, or uh, this what's that, Uber or Airbnb, all that. Okay, some popular tools are all, so Bolt you can do Lovable, Cursor. Okay, that's it. So we have learned 51 essential terms that every modern, AI builder and software professional should actually know, right? And we started from, Docker, CI/CD, webhook, API, and we completed till MVP. Now you know most of these words, in fact, right? And when and where they can be used. Okay. But let me also tell you that vocabulary alone won't make you a builder. You have to actually practice it. Okay. So after this session, I would encourage you to, do 3 things. First is build a small AI project. Okay. Use these terms while working, and don't be afraid to experiment. Keep building, keep learning, right? See you in the next session. Thank you.